Well, good morning. This is Ian R. Crane, and it's the morning of Thursday, 21st of December 2017. So for those who celebrate the movements of the sun, then a very happy solstice to you. Now, I came up to one of my favourite spots in the southwest of England. I'm just alongside Hay Tor here, on the southeastern corner of Dartmoor, and I came up here to see the sunrise, but don't think there's much chance of that today. It's a little misty, and the top of the Tor is absolutely covered in mist right now, but it's a little fresh too, so it'll certainly wake me up. And it's a very special day in many respects, and unfortunately the camera is vibrating a bit here. The wind is quite strong. Hopefully the mufflers are protecting the microphones from the wind noise a little bit. But today is not only the solstice, but it is the day after the anniversary of the Kirby Misperton Protection Camp. It's the day after the 6-week anniversary of all the kit still sitting on the well site at Kirby Misperton, awaiting for either the permission of Greg Clark, Secretary of State, to go ahead, or to tell Barclays Bank, trading as Third Energy, that sorry, they are not fit for purpose, and he's not going to risk his political career by signing this off anytime soon. And yesterday, the Tibetan monks made their visit to the entrance of KM8 to say a prayer for the ecology of this country, because we know very well that if this industry does actually get to kick off, then from that point forward, the ecology of this country is at very serious risk. And the title of today's live stream update is Vibrio Vulnificus. And the significance of this will appear as we go through this morning's live stream. But Vibrio Vulnificus first came to my attention in the aftermath of the BP Deepwater Horizon disaster. And actually, I still have the footage of a senior manager with BP telling Stephen Fry in a documentary that he was filming from Channel 4 that as part of the cleanup campaign for the slick, which manifested after the disaster, BP had introduced genetically modified microbiology. And at which point, the PR guys who were in the background, making sure that nothing was said that might cause them any problems later, immediately shut down the interview. And I'm not even sure that that made it into the final documentary. But the good news is I still have that footage. And if I can dig it out, I will put a link to it on this video. It is a few years ago, so it's well in my archives. But the significance of Vibrio Vulnificus will become apparent. And the reason it's so virulent is because in the aftermath of the BP Deepwater Horizon, there appeared to be an increasing number of cases where people had been attacked by this microbiology. And it is particularly virulent because it's flesh-eating. And of course the establishment says, oh, it's natural, there's a few cases of this every year, and well, there may be, but in the aftermath of the BP Deepwater Horizon disaster, there seemed to be an increased number of cases where people were attacked by this virulent microbiology. And the reality is that news today in the developed world particularly is compartmentalized. So basically, unless you literally live in an area where something's happened, you will probably never know anything about it. And a case in point is the fact last night that on the BBC Look North programme, they did a piece on Kirby Misperton. They showed the monks doing their stuff at the gates of KM8. And they also talked about the fact that Third Energy is once again remiss in filing its accounts. But it also made the observation that the last accounts that are available showed that Third Energy owed some £53 million to another branch of Third Energy, which of course is Barclays Bank. And of course this is how the corporate structures are set up to minimise the amount of tax liability. And of course Theresa May, when she says that communities will benefit from the profits from shale gas, she knows fine well that these companies are never going to make any profits. But in a bid to delude and deceive the public, both Quadrilla and Third Energy have sent letters around to the local communities in the vicinity of their respective well sites, inviting them to submit suggestions as to how they could spend the £100,000 that they are going to give to the community once they actually start fracking. Now, £100,000 basically in the scheme of things is nothing. It certainly doesn't come free. It will undoubtedly come with a receipt and a release to say that those communities will not actually sue the companies, Third Energy or Quadrilla, for anything that transpires in the aftermath of the frack. So this is blatant bribery, and of course this should be your first clue, because how many other industries, with the exception of nuclear waste, how many other industries do you know who come into a community and basically say, hey guys, you know, look, you know, this might not be the best thing since sliced bread, but you know, we can buy your silence. Yeah, your house prices are going to go down, but you know, listen, you know, we can pump £100,000 into your community. And as somebody once calculated, that worked out at about a marathon bar a month for every person living in that community for a year. So not particularly exciting, is it? But anyway, nobody outside the northeast saw that BBC report last night, unless they particularly wanted to and tuned on to BBC iPlayer, or you can see it on FRAC Free TV, where it has been uploaded. But nobody else around the country is aware of it, and this is how news is compartmentalized. And that's why the alternative media is so important, because the alternative media, you know, has open reach, and of course it may only be a relative handful of people, but you never know. Amongst those handful of people might be the person that actually has access to the Achilles heel that shuts this industry down. Now, let's talk about the link with Vibrio Vulnificus, and it comes very much back to the subject of some of the last few upstreets, which is the waste. And of course the British government and these companies, they lie, deceive, they obfuscate about the waste. And that was never more apparent than in the immediate aftermath of the release of the Edinburgh University report, which observes that actually dealing with the frack waste is a much bigger problem than anyone is actually acknowledging or admitting to. And of course this is, you know, what the anti-fracking community have been trying to spell out to people, and anyone in public office who will listen, is that, you know, we don't have a solution for this. There is no solution. And that's why, you know, all you get is the industry saying, look, don't worry, we've got it covered. Well, tell us how you've got it covered. No, don't worry, we've got it covered. I promise you, we've got it covered. Trust me. Well, trust me, they haven't. So this was very much borne out by the pathetic statement put out by Ken Cronin, who was basically alluding to the fact that the best of the technology that is employed in the US is going to be brought over to the UK. Well, the best of the technology that's employed in the US, take your pick, is either evaporation pits, banned in Europe, so that ain't going to happen, re-injection. The Environment Agency is very uncomfortable with re-injection, even though there are a couple of wells that are approved for re-injection. As it happens, both of them are currently with Third Energy, one at Eberston Moor, where there's no activity, and another one at Kirby Misperton. Oh, and sorry, Pickering, at Pickering PK1. And the only other technique is basically dumping it in the sea. And they claim that it is diluted first with raw sewage, in the hope that the bacteria in the raw sewage will actually deal with the toxins in the frack waste, and then it's dumped unceremoniously into the Gulf of Mexico. And we know that, certainly we know for a fact, that 74 billion gallons of frack fluid was dumped in the Gulf of Mexico in 2014. So there's been, what, 3 years since then, and my bet is that they're doing much the same. Well, let me just introduce you to one of the processes that was patented back in 2010. And this is US patent And the patent name is biofilm remediation of frac fluid. It's US patent number 8425775B2. And I'm just going to read you a paragraph from the abstract. It says, disposal of flowback water, i.e. frac fluid, is one of the biggest challenges facing the recovery of natural gas from shale. Now you've got to bear in mind, this is being written some 15 years or so after the process had really been introduced in the US. So this statement of that it's the biggest challenge 15 years after first starting. Each well can produce millions of gallons of flowback water because after the fracking process, approximately 60% of the fluid is pushed back up the well by the released gas. Groundwater can be protected by casing, and casing can also be the problem, of course, but the problem lies in the safe disposal of the flowback water, which can contain arsenic, magnesium, cobalt, chromium, lead, radium, uranium, iron, nickel, and cadmium, plus various other metals and dissolved wastes, as well as compounds added by the manufacturer, i.e. by the company that's trying to extract the gas. An additional concern is that the frac fluid can be radioactive from radium-226 and radium-228. So what this patent proposes is dealing with the waste through bioremediation, which is exactly what BP were trying to do with the slick in the Gulf after the Deepwater Horizon disaster, where they introduced, by their own admission, a genetically modified bacteria. So here's some of the bacteria that this particular patent discusses as possible application for the bioremediation. You have to excuse my pronunciation. I'm not a microbiologist, which can be extremely life-limiting, as I'll tell you in a minute. So bacteria, Pseudomonas, Aeromonas, Klebsiella, Bacteroideus, Deinococcus geothermalis, Deinococcus radiouranus, Vibrio Vulnificus, Schwannella Pizzatilia, Soinella bacteria, Panteo agglomerans, and Vibrio Vulnificus. So one of the bacteria that this patent describes as being potentially applicable to the bioremediation process is a known flesh-eating bacteria, which pumped into the system, what does it do? Does it consume and die? Does it consume and breed? You know, so are we unleashing potentially something that has ramifications way beyond anyone's perception right now? And, you know, when I introduced this prospect back in 2010, that was when all hell was unleashed, and there was a massive attempt to demonize me. It was the ad hominem attack, so I knew I was onto something. 50 websites appearing overnight trying to claim that I was disrupting the Gulf activist community, and that there was a $10 million lawsuit out on me for illegally recording a phone call. It's all a crock, but it was all done to undermine the conjecture that I was putting out in the immediate aftermath of the BP Deepwater Horizon disaster. And funnily enough, over the last couple of weeks, since I've been focused on doing these live stream updates on a daily basis, guess what? The ad hominem, the personal attacks, are starting to ramp up. So call it a hunch, but I'd say I'm onto something. And you know, the important thing is, as is always the case, do your own research. Take a look at this. But you know, the one thing that the industry and the government owe the British public is a detailed explanation of how the frack waste is going to be dealt with. And you know, not to just provide the palliatives, not just throw out the usual lies, deceit and obfuscation you know, which Lee Petts did. Lee Petts, the chief executive of Remsol, you know, when he was asked about the remediation process of frac fluid, he couldn't get off the subject quick enough. In fact, he went on to talk about the amazing job that the waste industry has done in this country with fly ash. Well, that may be the case, but, you know, you couldn't answer the question. You just went on to deflect to something that you did want to talk about, i.e. fly ash. But you know fine well that Remsol have no experience of dealing with frac waste. And the first wells, if they're signed off at Kirby Misperton and Priest Hall, will be a massive test, you know, for the waste disposal industry in this country. And the bottom line is, I don't believe for one moment that they have the capability and the capacity to deal with the volume of frac waste. And what is it about microbiologists? Because, you know, this is something that I haven't talked about for a few years now, but, you know, the number of microbiologists that have met with mysterious deaths over the past 10, 15 years or so is truly remarkable. And I'm going to draw your attention to an article on the TAP Newswire. Now, you know, the TAP News is a wonderful source of independent news, and you can just punch in TAP Newswire and microbiologists, and what you'll find from, I think it's about 2016, is an article there on the list of over 100 microbiologists who have met with a mysterious demise over the last 15 years. So what is it that these guys know that the establishment doesn't want them getting out into the public domain? So they do their research, the establishment, the government says thank you very much, and then they meet with an unfortunate demise because they don't want that being released. Now, call me a conspiracy theorist. Oh, David Rose of the Daily Mail has already done that. So, you know, hey, listen, I always say, do your own research. Don't take anything I say at face value. And the great thing about what the fracking industry and this government agenda is doing is it is making people more aware that the establishment has absolutely no interest or desire in telling the truth. They are there to further an agenda. And the most incredible thing that I've seen is people in, you know, the Tory heartlands of the Fylde and in North Yorkshire, and these people who have never ever had cause to question the establishment in any way, shape or form are now asking the question, and they're saying, well, actually, you know what? If they're not prepared to tell us the truth, the whole truth about this, if they're not prepared to uphold democracy on this, they're only prepared to uphold democracy if the local politicians give the right answers. So what else is it that they're covering up? And, you know, it's fascinating to now have some of these people initiate discussions on some of the issues associated with the bigger picture, and the realization that basically they have pretty much been lied to, and everything that they thought they knew is actually a complete crock of crap. And some of these people are now devoted to doing their own research and scraping back the veneer of this ersatz democracy that they have believed that they've been living in for the last 50, 60, 70 years or whatever, and starting to realize that, you know what, unless they take responsibility, then future generations are basically going to be shafted by politicians that are in the hock of the corporations and PR agencies that are employed to effectively prostitute themselves. The individuals in those agencies prostitute themselves to protect the corporations from having to answer the hard questions. And funnily enough, of course, the industry and the government will never ever agree to participate in any public debate if they know that the public are far better informed than they are. And the only person that seems to be immune to this is Tom Pickering, who basically walks into the lion's den not giving a stuff, because he absolutely believes that he's got the INEOS logo protecting him and he's got the full force of the establishment. Well, you know, ride that wave while you have the opportunity, Mr. Pickering, because I have a very nasty feeling that that ain't going to last for too much longer. So, here's the message for today, and that is that, first of all, it is imperative that every single community that's being targeted by this insidious industry demands chapter, line and verse answers on everything, but in particular the waste disposal and the content of the waste that is likely to emerge from the frac operation, where it's going to be dealt with, how it's going to be dealt with, and how the end product of the treatment process is going to be dealt with. Is it going to be just mixed with raw sewage and pumped into the sea? Is it just going to be pumped into the Manchester Ship Canal, which is what United Utilities did, excuse me, in 2011? Bit of damp in the air today. Or are they going to claim that they're going to reuse it? Well, you know, let's see some evidence of that, because there's no evidence that that has been done anywhere else in the world. So we're coming to the end of 2017. It does look like we're going to get another frac-free year. Parliament goes into recess later today and isn't due to return until January the 8th. Nice work if you can get it. And so, you know, is a decision going to be made during the recess? Possibly. I mean, you know, there's a good possibility that Greg Clark might think that he can dodge the issue by making the decision this afternoon or tomorrow and it being buried and forgotten over the Christmas holidays. Well, there's no chance of that, Greg, I can categorically assure you. And if you put your signature on this, then communities need to get on your case and ask to see what information you've seen that gives you the confidence that this process can be done safely, when basically the industry have spent the last 5 years trying to tell communities that that's the case, and they have failed abysmally. So this is all about communities taking back the responsibility. It's about communities taking control of what occurs in their area and not abdicating, not just leaving it to local councillors or county councillors, actually getting involved. And of course, don't forget that you can get information from the those people employed in public office and in the corporations that are doing jobs or performing roles that were once done as part of public service. And you can ask the questions by using the website whatdotheyknow.com. Well, that's it from me up here on Hey Tour. I'm absolutely amazed that we had a signal. It seems the signal up here is better than, you know, where I've been hanging out in the southwest. So, you know, maybe on a better day when there isn't so much early morning mist, I'll come back and do another live stream here. Meanwhile, have a great solstice, and wherever you are, have a, you know, wonderful day. But don't forget, you know, spend a little bit of time taking a look at what's occurring, because if you don't, the legacy that we are leaving for future generations just doesn't bear thinking about. So thanks again for joining me, and I will catch you for the last live stream before Christmas tomorrow morning on Friday 22nd. So have a great day, and I'll catch you tomorrow.